Hello, all my continuously creative quilting friends. I'm so glad that you joined me again. Today is day 13 of our shelter at home, and it's 2 o'clock, and I'm so excited to have you guys join me and be with me here today on my Facebook page. And today I want to talk about keeping your project organized as you're working on it, because sometimes you have to move things, especially if your sewing area is not something that you can keep set up all the time and you can just work on here and there. You want to keep things really organized and able to pick right back up where you were and not have to go through it all again and try to figure out where you were at. So I found a few things that I use that kind of help to stay organized with that. And I thought it would be kind of fun to show you the progress on my little tiny 1-inch pieces. It's coming along. And what I'm doing is I have this box of all my little 1.5 inch pieces. They're 1.5 inch cut and they're going to sew into 1-inch pieces. And so I've just been trimming these little scraps up kind of as I sit in front of the TV in the evening. And I have this whole box full, and I'm kind of just digging through and picking out two as I'm working on other projects to kind of be the leader ender of sewing other things together. So this is what I mean. I'm going to show you in my sewing machine right now that I have, if I can get it down there. See that little 1.5 inch piece in there. So instead, like, I like to do a lot of chain piecing where I'm not, sew one thing, pull the threads, cut it, sew one thing. I like to keep something in the machine as I'm piecing because it saves thread for one thing, but it also saves, sometimes when you first start out sewing, if you don't have a grasp on those two little threads coming out, they get tangled up and bunched up, and you have a big nest of threads underneath the beginning of your seam, and it's just knotted all up in a nightmare, and you get really frustrated. So a key to prevent that is either hold on to those strings for your first couple of stitches or use a leader ender thing. Or another thing I've heard people call it, if you don't have pieces that you're actually sewing together as the leader ender of your seam, you can just use like a little scrap, and you just kind of keep running that scrap through. And this morning, my mom and I were talking about that, and she said some of her people call those Harries because you get a whole lot of strings sewn on them and they got all the little threads on the end and they look hairy. I thought that was a riot. That just cracks me up. My mom's so funny. So anyway, I have this box of all of these little pieces, and I'll just kind of grab in there and grab them out. Well, I remembered that I have this super fun little way to organize them into color instead of just having them in the box. So this is a muffin tin, and of course it's painted this beautiful color. This was made for me by my friend Cindy, who's not my Cindy that works with me, but another friend, Cindy, that's a friend of my mom's. She's one of her employees at the store. So I have to give a shout out to that Cindy. Everybody needs a Cindy, I always say. So this is my mom, Cindy, that made this for me. And she painted it this really beautiful color, purple, for me. But of course, you wouldn't have to paint it. You could just get a muffin tin at the store or whatever, and it's just a fun little way. So I've got my reds and purples and blacks and greens and all kind of organized. So now I can maybe be a little bit more like organized when I maybe I want, or deciding which colors that I want to pull out to sew together. So I'm going to go through and finish filling that up with all the different colors. That's going to be really fun. So then one of the retreats I was at, they had these little divided plastic things. But I also have gotten these had I don't know, cookies or something in it from Costco. So those are nice. I just emptied it out, washed it up. And then, this full bigger size one would be really good. Like when I have to take this off the wall, then I could just keep them all in here. So that's a really nice way. Ziploc baggies work well also. Um, but I like being able to see, what it is that I have going and everything. So this divided one is really fun because on this side I have my little twosies that I've sewn together. And like I said the other day, what I'm doing is I'm sewing these into 9 patches, and then I'll sew all the 9 patches together in like a 9 patcher or a 16 patch or something, just a bunch of them together in groups instead of trying to do a lot of rows. And then on the other side of this, I have the ones that I have sewn together in threes so that I can, oh, the 3 one just fell into the 2s. So that's just kind of a way that I know, okay, all these need one more sewn onto them. Then when I'm ready, I got a bunch of the 3s put together. I can start sewing those together into 9 patches. And again, I'm just working on those as I'm working on other stuff, kind of at the beginning and ending of my seams for my other quilts. So pretty soon I'll have enough of these all put together. I'm planning on making like a full bed-size quilt out of that. I think it's going to be really fun. I think it'll be really heavy because it'll have lots of those seams and stuff in it. So that's going to be fun. So a couple other ways to stay organized during a project. I showed you all of the little plastic bins that I use. This is this is a jelly roll. I was going to grab a jelly roll and put it in here. I don't have one in here right now, but this is made by Art Bin, and it's actually for putting your jelly roll strips in. So I don't know if you've ever done, we didn't really talk about what a jelly roll is. I've talked about the fat quarters and that kind of thing. I think I've talked about jelly rolls, but they're like 44 2.5-inch strips from like one line of fabric. And there's lots of projects. I showed you the jelly roll rug the other day that I made out of a jelly roll. And there's lots of jelly roll patterns out there. I have one that I wrote using a jelly roll called Jelly Roll Slide. That's a lot of fun. So, or even if you're doing the infamous jelly roll race, if you put them in here, this has this little extra holder things, these little things down here that kind of hold them in place so they don't slide around and stuff. And you can just put them in the order that you want and then pull them out and sew them together without having to reorganize. Now, which order did I want to put those in? Another fun thing, and I think I might do a little how-to video on these in the future, but this is a project bag that my friend Marlo has showed me how to make, and there's another one I have that she made for me that's really nice, but I like this bigger size. So this is going to be a bunch of rectangles that I cut for a back of a quilt that I'm going to put together. So, and you can see inside the bag, I have them separated again into baggies. And the reason that I did that is because I had them all laid out on my design wall, which, by the way, you guys have noticed I've always had a lot of times something different up here on this wall. This is all I have here is just a piece of batting. I have the little T-tracking at the ceiling, so I'm able to just clip the batting on there, and the fabric just sticks right to it. It's a great way to be able to see how your quilt is going to look all put together before you actually sew it together. A design wall can be a lifesaver in debating where you want to put the color placement of things to have a good look. So I use this on almost every single quilt that I make. And then I like where it's at now because it's in the back. I think I showed you my room before I kind of reorganized. I had a smaller wall. So this wall's bigger, and I can even walk all the way out of the room and look in and see it from far away. Another way to determine if you really like the placement of your quilt, colors and blocks to make sure that it's the way that you want it to look, is to put it all up there and then just walk away. If something just doesn't quite seem right, or if you're not really sure if those two colors should be by each other, put it up there, walk away, come back, even the next day, or even 30 minutes to an hour later, and you'll kind of have a different perspective just being away from it for a little bit. So that's a really good tip. And then also another way to know if you have a good balance of color and shades of color, like contrasts and stuff, is to put it up on your design wall and then take a picture of it and then look at it on your smaller screen on your phone or your iPad or whatever. Because when you can condense that big look of the quilt down into a little picture, it's a lot easier to see what's wrong with it. So, and then if you really want to know contrast and scale of your colors and stuff, then do it in grayscale so that that really shows you what's popping and what's not. So those are just a few tips that I have for you guys for keeping your projects organized as you're working on them and putting them all together using the design wall. And I hope that you learned something new and something helpful. Please share any tips that you have with me, and I will pass them along on my 2 o'clock Facebook lives with you guys. So join me tomorrow. Stay continuously creative, and we'll see you tomorrow at 2 o'clock. Bye.